This time we are going to be talking about making your GoldMine data more useful. So as usual, our presenter, Rob Maclack, will be demonstrating this for you. So without further ado, Rob, take it away.
All righty, Carnegie. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you, Carnegie. So this is, as Carnegie mentioned, our first of the year, but part of a long series of webinars for MasterMine users to help you use MasterMine better. And sort of a quick reminder as I get started with this, this section will be recorded and sent out to you afterwards for your reviewing pleasure and sharing. More importantly, you're sharing with other people within the organization. Remember, I know a lot of you have MasterMine, multiple seats of MasterMine, multiple licenses of MasterMine that your company can use, and we want to make sure that those get as broadly used within your company as possible. Hopefully this helps to spur some thinking for you. In fact, what I really wanted to say is, you know, the overall purpose of this whole series of webinars for MasterMine users is to help you get more value from your GoldMine and MasterMine combination. And specifically, we want to give you ideas about creative ways to use your GoldMine data so that you can activate it, you know, in support or in service to your the general goals of your company. So it's giving you these creative ideas, but also teaching you the techniques, the sort of the how-tos for helping you present data better. So it's a kind of it's a what I would consider sort of a low-level kind of a technical training about how to use MasterMine. And then thirdly, it's also we're doing this to make you aware of the resources that we can provide to support you all along the way in working with MasterMine. So, you know, this whole series is all about, you know, well, what can you do with MasterMine? How can you do it? And then how can you get help doing it to make sure that you actually get what you need? Just wanted to sort of remind you of that. It's not just simply, you know, this is the quick MasterMine training. We're really trying to give you something that's more of a comprehensive backup for your use of MasterMine. So here's our agenda for today. And I hope that in addition to what I'm going to show you here on the agenda, that you brought your questions with you related to our topic, which is making GoldMine data itself more useful. It's not, and obviously if you make the data more useful, you're making GoldMine more broadly more useful. But we're, of course, not focusing on the GoldMine interface itself, although we will talk about it working with it. But really the data itself, the data that sits behind the GoldMine interface, how can we actually turn that into a tool for accomplishing the things that we want to do. And so what I'll be focusing on here today is well, in this agenda we'll be talking about, first off, determining if you need a new field in GoldMine for reporting purposes, and if you do, how to add it into GoldMine, into the database, into the reports, and then actually populate that field. So it's essentially in a number of different steps here. I just got a little bit ahead of myself. So determining if you need a new field in GoldMine at all, or if you just really need something for a report, but not necessarily something in GoldMine. I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. And then if you do need a new field in GoldMine, how to actually add it to GoldMine, which is really done in two parts. First is actually creating just the space for the information to be in GoldMine, and then secondly to actually populate that space with information, which may come from elsewhere in GoldMine. And I don't just mean shifting a field from here to there, but actually generating it logically, or it might even come from outside of GoldMine itself. We'll talk about those things. And then there's also the possibility that you don't actually need a new separate field in GoldMine itself, that you just really only need to derive that information for the purposes of a report, and how you might go about doing that. Then we'll talk about inserting a field that you have added to GoldMine to a report, a MasterMine report that already exists. Some of you don't know that there are ways to do that. And then, well, actually, what I said so far, that's really the meat of what we're talking about today. And then the last thing we'll do, remember, as we always do at the end of our session, is give away a free half-hour consulting session with you, where we'll get online with you and actually answer your questions, handle whatever kinds of issues you may be having with MasterMine by which I don't mean technical issues. Hopefully if you ever have technical issues, you always contact us. Support is free for those on annual maintenance, so if something's not working with your MasterMine, do let us know. It doesn't cost us anything to get online with you and help you. That's technical support is free. Writing reports and manipulating data and helping you with how to do things within the parameters of the working software, that's additional paid support that we do. So with that, let's jump in and move the agenda out of the way and get over to looking at GoldMine. Okay, so what I want to talk about here is again the possibility of adding new fields to either existing reports, and the agenda sort of starts with this question of how do you determine whether you actually need to add a new report, add a new field to the whole system in order to have it show up on a report. And I'll talk about the two possible ways of thinking about, or the two possible ways you might go with this. It might start to just sort of remind you that it is possible for any master user of GoldMine to actually add additional fields at the contact level in GoldMine. It's a pretty simple, easy thing to do. I'll actually show you technically how to do that in a moment. But of course, you don't want to do that willy-nilly. It is important that the top part of the screen here for your GoldMine users remain relatively simple. In other words, you don't want to crowd this up with any number of fields. You want to be careful that a user, particularly a sales user, can at a glance see all the things that they need to know in order to support them doing their sales. So usually, oftentimes we go and we'll look at a client's GoldMine and not add any fields to the top of the screen here. Usually to me that tells me, I think they really haven't really thought through in a detailed way what information they need, what they really should be doing with GoldMine on the sales side. What information does a salesperson, let's assume that GoldMine is primarily being used for sales, what do they need to know at a glance when they are calling somebody to sell to them, or maybe a customer that's already been a customer in the past? What do they need to know about past activity that that should be presented right up front so that they don't have to go down and actually look, let's say, on the Fields tab or go to any of the other custom tabs down below. Not that those aren't also useful tabs, and they really should be used and sort of fully built out. Let's say to give you the full detail of what an end user of your product, what you know about them, their demographic information, and so on. But key information should be at the top. Some examples of information that you might want to have there would be things like the date they were last actually talked to. That's actually what I'm going to use as my example today, is adding in a field up here at the top that gives you the date that the account or a person from that account was last spoken with. Now, I'll explain to you why that's important and why that's not actually already in GoldMine, even though you might be thinking that it is. We'll come to that. Some other examples of things that you want to have up here at the top that we've commonly had are past buying behavior, last year's total sales to this customer, this year's sales year to date to this customer. Other key demographic information. In our own database here at MasterMine, we keep actually a whole series of dates up here in the top right. They're sort of what we call our milestone dates. They're the dates that someone has well, some examples are that the lead was assigned to a sales rep. The last time they clicked on one of our email marketing pieces, which, by the way, that's another really attractive thing that people like to have is, if you're sending out emails and people have the ability to click to go to your website, you should capture that date and use it for further marketing purposes, or for, in this case, for actually helping sales reps to prioritize their calls by putting that information right up here. It's a big difference if you've got a lead in your database that has had no activity in the past 10 months versus one where you can sort of read down a series of milestone dates and say, well, okay, someone actually talked to them in the last 30 days, so we're okay with that. But the last time they got any literature from us was 3 years ago. Well, we might want to deal with with that separately. Now, all that information in a raw form is down here on the history tab, of course. The time when the last time someone talked to them and so on, you're going to have that information down here in history if those calls and so on have actually happened in the past. What I'm talking about is actually boiling out and distilling the key sales supporting information and getting it right up here where it's visible, and using reporting field for that purpose. Okay, so let's go right to that, and we'll talk about what it takes to add a field. In this case, as I mentioned, I'm going to put a new field in GoldMine. So this is just purely GoldMine stuff, not MasterMine. We're going to be adding a field here, and this field is going to be called, we have to put sort of a generic name starting with a U on there. And so this is last contact, last cont. So what I'm going to put on the description on here, which is last contact. Now, I say last contact, you guys who have attended these webinars with me before, I don't just mean the last time we sent an email to them. I also don't even mean the last time we dialed their phone. What I really mean is the last time we actually had somebody on our side talk to somebody on their side, which is a very a far more meaningful thing to me than, hey, if somebody called and left 4 messages last week, I don't consider that we've actually had a business-to-business contact go on there. Even though some effort was made, okay, we want to make, we'll acknowledge that, but what's important to us is that we actually have active contact going on with our customers and prospects, so we're going to want to record that properly. All right, so I'm going to keep this as a date. As you probably know, when you add a user-defined field to GoldMine, it can be any of 3 types. It can be a character type field, numeric field, or a date field. It is important to specify which ones those are, partly because of the formatting and how they're saved in GoldMine, but even more importantly for the reporting itself. If you save information as real dates, those dates can be, calculations can be done using those dates. So for example, one of the things we want to do is something like a 30, 60, 90 report, or really more like a 90, 120 report, or sorry, a 90, 180 report on last contact when we come back here in MasterMine. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add this field. Now, something else to bear in mind for master user GoldMine, you can add fields sort of at will GoldMine. And I mentioned about not littering the screen with too many of these. The other thing to know is it's probably best not to do this during working hours because there is some danger of this disrupting your user's use of GoldMine. Now, if you're only a single user of GoldMine and there's only 3 of you and you know the others aren't actively working on it, you probably can on the fly and add a field like I'm going to do here. But if GoldMine is business critical to you, to your organization, and you have really quite a few users of it, and you don't really know if they're actively hitting the database, you don't want to be adding a field it's with quite the abandon that I'm doing here right now. It's best, like I say, to do that, to do it as a separate thing after hours. The reason for that is when you add a field into the database, I've just added it, and you see it just appears on the left-hand side here. I'm going to drag it up, drop it where I ultimately want it to show up here. I can do a couple of other manipulations with this, and then get out of the design screen. And when I do, I'm going to be asked to whether I want to rebuild the GoldMine Contact To table. That's the stage where if you've got people using GoldMine, and especially if they happen to be hitting the Contact To table just as you're doing that rebuild, you're going to have a problem. 9 times out of 10, those things probably wouldn't overlap, but that 10th time, that's the one that really gets you. So that's just a word of warning there. So I'm going to do one last setting in here with this field, which is to I could identify just a local label on this. In other words, it only shows up for me for the given contact set that I'm on. As for those of you who have multiple contact sets in GoldMine, I'd say most of you just have one. I'm going to go right past that a little bit. But if you've got questions about having different labels for the same field in multiple contact sets, let us know, and we'll talk about that. Actually, the one that I wanted to go to was this one, layout. the layout of the field allows you both to specify the length of the field label itself and the data, how wide a space you allow for that data to show up on the screen. So you want to get both of those properly. The row and the column for it are actually given by where you dragged it to. So if you dragged it to where it's going to work for you, you don't need to bother with those. And then the last one here is the field order. Field order is when people go tabbing through your fields on this top screen, in what order does the cursor jump? So if you're at the top field here and you hit tab, 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 you would go down the list here, or you might not. If you find that when you try that on your own GoldMine database and it seems to jump all over the screen here, it's probably because nobody actually went in and set up the field order for that top screen. And you will want to actually set those field orders for those fields so that somebody can tab through it in some kind of a logical fashion. I'm going to make this position 100 just to sort of put it at the end. Now here's where I'm asked, by GoldMine, am I prepared right now to rebuild this database to add that field in? I'm going to. This is just a demo database I'm working with here. So quickly, GoldMine does the rebuild on the contact to table, which is where the user-defined fields are kept. And I log back in again, and voila, I have a field. So last contact field, which is of course empty. It's the date field, as you can see when I go to the lookup for it. So I'll be able to select dates here as I add them in here. That's not what I'm going to do though. I'm not going to rely on my sales reps every time they complete a call to somebody to go up, to remember to go up and actually add today's date in there. Now it is possible to do that. Can be done various different ways. I've seen it done. Probably the easiest way is actually to set up a trigger that triggers when a history record with certain characteristics is completed into GoldMine. We could actually set up a SQL trigger that populates this with today's date. The date on which that history item is finished. Those of you who think sort of methodically or think in terms of process the way I do might recognize that as a pretty, it's actually quite an accurate and useful way to sort of manipulate the GoldMine interface so that it does actually tell you the stuff that you need to do. Where that, of course, comes up a little bit short is, well, there's already data in your database. You've got past history, and you want to have a last contact date in there. How are you going to populate that information into this field? Now, I'm going to use this as, I'm using this as a single example, but I want you to also think broadly about your own database, what you want to actually be doing with, with your own GoldMine, what information, again, would be most useful for people to have. Because, again, it could be numeric information like past dollar amounts of what they bought from you. It might be the last date they bought something, last actual date that they bought something from you, which could be information that could be found under your as complete sales or history, or might be brought in from your accounting system and actually imported using Updater into that field. Many ways that you can populate this with useful information. I'm going to give you the example of doing it this way. I'm going to go ahead and create a report. What I want is, of course, the last date we had a contact with these guys. I hope that was a record, but I'm not here, that has the history items listed out. But just to make sure we know what we're talking about, you could have called them 10 times, and the most recent 3 times they were called, all you did was leave a message. Well, the date that's up there, I don't want this date up here to be the last time you dialed their phone, so the last time any history item was created. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run this report. And while I'm running that, I'm actually going to switch back here and look at GoldMine, because I think most of you are probably aware that in GoldMine there's a tab called Summary, which I am not seeing. Here it is. So you have a Summary tab. These fields are built into GoldMine. Everybody here has these fields. But they're a little bit, I find them to be a little bit problematic. I think I've gone into this before, so I won't do too much detail on this. But last contact is not actually the last time that person was spoken to. Last contact in GoldMine could be the last time an email was sent to them, even a marketing email. even something completely insignificant. So if you're doing a lot of marketing email out of GoldMine, this field is really not very useful for you because you might have called them the last time, you might actually have called them and left a message or actually spoken with somebody 10 months ago, but if an email was sent to them by the marketing department yesterday's date's what's going to show up in here, so that's not going to be very useful for you. Last attempt, likewise, that's the last actual failed attempt to call. So if you did a call and selected, I can't remember what the selection is there. No success, I think, is the value there. Then that would update that field. But again, that's not very useful information, and it's a rare client that I've talked to that actually uses the success or no success checkbox in the complete. What is it?
Unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful. Right. Unsuccessful. That when they complete history in GoldMine. So I'm going to assume for now you know what I'm talking about as far as the GoldMine data. The information that's available within GoldMine, and let's just go into the technique of identifying what was an actual last contact. So this database that I'm looking at here, I'm seeing, why am I seeing, oh, okay. So this is this is all history for all time in this demo database, so that's why I've got 1,388 calls and appointments here that are being counted. If I were to actually lay this out by the companies that have been contacted, and let's say all the results, I'll pull in the result codes for all the times they've been called or had a call or an appointment. This one's out of order for, just move it over there. Okay, so this is sort of just a visual layout of my mouse is just not responding very well. It's jumping all over the screen here. Got a memory situation going on here, I think. So this is, for each company, these are all the results we've ever had with calls and appointments. Not in any particular date order, but all of the different kinds of results. And what I want to indicate, this is the result code, of course, that the sales rep chooses from the list when they complete a call or complete an appointment. It indicates, did I actually talk to them? Did I just, let's say, leave a message? Or, were they not available for some reason? And so we have a series of codes here that are possible from that drop-down. I'm going to just pick the ones that actually indicate that a contact was made. Now we've got COM for completed, we've got INP for in process, DIS for disqualified. That might be another time to indicate that an actual contact was made and enough information was gleaned that the relationship was forwarded in some way. But you can see that there's also other possibilities here, left message and so on. If you left a message, that's not a contact. And so what we want to do is actually isolate only the types of calls that actually resulted in a completed contact. So what I've done is highlight the 3 that I'm going to consider valid contacts, and I'm going to go ahead and build a group of those and call them contact. And I'm going to bring it down to a single column. So I'm going to, by clicking on the minus button here, that's going to roll these 3 up into a single column that pulls all of our actual contacts together. I'm doing this for a reason. What I want to do is get to where the only information that I'm looking at is the actual contact information, and then use that with Updater to bring the actual date of that activity into GoldMine. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm pulling the companies out, so I'm not looking at the individual companies, and that leaves me with a single row that gives me just a count on each of the different result codes that are in GoldMine, and all 3 of my ones that indicate type of contact, real contact altogether. So that when I double click on this 872, which are my actual communications with the customers, now I have a spreadsheet with a list of all of those actual contacts and what happened with them. And our reason for doing this is we're actually wanting to get the most recent date of the most recent contact into that field on the GoldMine side. That's what I'm aiming for here. An important thing to know at this point is these records, when we go to do, or these rows, when we go to do our Updater process, are going to run from top to bottom. So in other words, the updating is done with the first row, and then the second row, and the third row, and that's important because if we put these in oldest to newest order, and all I did was go to the on date field here and choose oldest to newest. If we do that, then what's going to happen is Updater is going to read down this column, and it's just going to pop this field, pop this date value into that field for each of these records in order. So if Comrade Corporation actually shows up someplace farther down the list because they had a later contact, that later contact is going to overwrite the earlier one, and as a result, we're actually going to have the information that we want in the GoldMine side. So let's go ahead and do that process. I'll go ahead, first I actually want to select that on date field. I'm going to hit Updater. One of the great things about MasterMine, of course, is that it reads the GoldMine structure automatically. So even though I just added that last contact field to GoldMine, U last contact, by the way, is of course the one that I want. That's the user-defined one because it starts. I know that starts with U. And this other one is that last contact date that I was just talking about that doesn't really help us very much, the built-in one. So I'm going to update that field that I added on the GoldMine side. I'm going to actually take this off of test run because I'm just bold like that, and I'm going to go ahead and update those fields on the GoldMine side. I'm going to get a little message here that says, because this is a MasterMine report, it's just a warning basically that, hey, if we plugged our dates with 1/1/1989 for ones that had no value there, then how do I want to handle them? In this case, I don't actually have any that were plugged with the done date, so I can basically just say yes. Let's go ahead. Whoops, I did, however, neglect to set my, and good, that's kind of good that happened for a user training session. By default, Updater, if it finds a record ID field, says, oh, that must be the one that you want to go and look up the record on the GoldMine side with that. That's not always the case, and it's certainly not the case right now. What we actually want to do is look up the Contact To record, not by the record ID from history, which is what CH Records is, but really by the account number. The account number allows us to match up with the correct Contact To field. So I'm going to start that process again. Go ahead and say OK. We'll say yes, and quickly it will run through those 872. And that's it. We're basically now populating that GoldMine field, which we'll be able to use for many different possible reporting purposes. Some examples of that, of course, is a straight-up report that just shows you. Well, sorry, I wanted to talk just as a GoldMine sales rep. Having that information on the top right is going to be itself meaningful. I would also suggest that there are other dates probably in the sales process that also would be useful to put up there. If those don't occur to you right off the top of your head, talk with us. We'd be happy to tell you more or to suggest other ones. But for reporting purposes, the use of that date would be things like a report that shows you, all of your key prospects based on your own demographics, of course. So whatever demographics you think are important to tell you somebody is a key prospect, or fields that people have entered that just say, A, B, or C, where are A prospects that have not had a real contact within the last, you name it, 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever makes the most sense. It's very easy at that point to make a MasterMine report that does that for you. You can also do things like calculate the days between that date and another date. How many days between the time it became a lead and the time of their most recent contact? There's actually a number of possible combinations of dates that may be interesting or useful numbers for you. I think I won't try to suggest them all. So as you know, when an updater process finishes in MasterMine, it jumps right to the log sheet so you can see what updates were actually made. Now if we go back to our original report, actually what I'll do is I'll just switch over to GoldMine here and we'll walk through a few records, and you'll see that, what did I do? I think I added that field to an employee type record. That didn't help much. I just happened to be on an employee record when I added that field. So let's go to a different type of record, which is because it's probably the customer record or prospect record. Okay, so it's prospect records. Those are the ones that we really need that last date field on. It's okay. We can go ahead and add this field. It still exists. We're not going to add it as a new field into GoldMine. We're actually just going to take a field that already exists and add it to this screen. It's actually called last date. Or is it called last date?
Cont.
Last cont. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Actually,
I think it's...
No, actually it is called last date. I think.
No.
Yeah, it is. What's surprising me here is what I should see, what I expected to see was last date and then in parentheses, you last date. Normally that's what you would see here. Oh, wait a minute. It might not be here because I haven't gotten out of GoldMine and come back in again. I think I might have to get out of GoldMine, but I'm gonna add it, and it didn't. It just went away on me. Oh, yeah, that's not the U last date. That's the built-in last date field from Contact 2. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get out of that. And I think actually what I'm going to do is let's cancel out of that. Exit screen design. And I'm going to get out of GoldMine and just log in again. The field obviously exists in there because it does show up on the other screen, and I just now did a bunch of updates to it. So puzzling that I didn't actually see it here. Okay, let's try that again. New field. And in my list here, I should see well, Carnegie. I'm puzzled.
Let's see.
I'm sorry, you last.
I told you.
You said last night, and I was looking at the last. It's all your fault.
Okay.
Okay, let's put it there. Let's put it there, and disappeared. Okay, why is it disappearing on me when I... It really should be showing up there with the GoldMine label on it. So that's puzzling, and then the fact that it's when I put it there. Oh, you know what? I think that is a little quirk of GoldMine. Let's see. That when I drop out of here, it should leave it for me. Okay, that's a little bit puzzling, and I don't want to get too caught up in this right now. So the fact that I can't actually display it on there, it's some quirk of GoldMine that's just not cooperating with me right now. But let's just assume that it showed up there on the top right. It's not all that important for reporting purposes to just we know that it's there. The next thing that I wanted to talk about actually was adding it into a report that already exists. So having used this workbook here, not as a report that we're going to use as a report, but really just as a tool to upgrade the database or to update the information in the database, I'll go ahead and close this report, and then we can pull in basically any other report that we want. We could go to our, let's say our sales forecast report, and I've already got a create dialog up here, so let me cancel out of that, and we'll go to sales forecast report. And so this might be actually a fairly real-world kind of example where you've got your forecast in GoldMine, and one of the things you want to know in your forecast report is, well, when's the last time somebody actually talked to these guys? Or is this, do we have reason to think that this forecast is even meaningful? So let's take one that's got our actual list of prospects in it. And do we actually have any of those? Well, even if we don't, I'll go ahead and make one. It's always easy to take a MasterMine report and do something new with it. So let's say we've got a list of our people that we have a forecast for. That's the company name, and we're going to sort this based on you know what, unfortunately started without wasn't a forecast report at all, it's a contact report. Forecast by probability, here's a good example. Okay, let's take this one, we'll clone it, and my real aim here is just I want to show the, it's killing me. Take out the number of sales, just do the dollar amounts, and what I want to do is show the company name here. So we see the individual ones, and for that I need the field list, and we'll put the company name in for each one of these, and then the date that they were last contacted. Oh, and the other thing was, of course, I wanted to focus in on, well, let's just look at 2014. I'm guessing that I don't have much in the way of 2015 data here. Let's try this again. Just choose 2014. And for the month of, I don't know, December. Okay, and then so that would be probably a really kind of a realistic looking forecast sale report. Of course, you could add whatever fields you wanted, but what I'm really aiming to do is add another column in here that is our last, date last contacted, so that I know that I don't have things on my forecast that just sort of have shown up in the month that I'm doing my sale, my work with the sales. They showed up there, but they're not real. They haven't actually been contacted recently. So how do I do that? I'll go up to my MM Tools tab. I'll hit Add Field. It'll go back to GoldMine and allow me to choose that user-defined field. Now this time I know that it's going to work. So that's the date that was last contacted. I'll add that field into my query. Say OK. Now I have that field to work with, and I can drag it right in after last company. So this will tell me this is the actual date of their most recent real phone conversation. I think that we did a phone conversation or appointment in that other dialog there. Now 1/1/1989, as you probably know from previous experience with MasterMine, means if you've got a date field and there is actually, and it says 1/1/1989, that actually means there was none. There was no contact. And I'd like to substitute a different value for that. It's possible to substitute just the word none if you wanted to, even though it's a date field, or you can substitute a space by hitting just the space bar and putting what's there, or you could actually leave it saying 1/1/1989, whatever it is. Whatever you choose to put in there, of course, it substitutes that same value every time it appears in that column, which is really a nice, useful thing about pivot tables. Okay, so all of that was by way of bringing you through that whole process of deciding that you needed a new report field, creating it, populating it on the GoldMine side, and then looping around and actually having it show up in your MasterMine report. That's the core of what I wanted to cover today. I'm going to pause a little bit, and I'm happy to talk about some other things, but I want to give you a chance to put any questions in that are of interest or comments on what you saw here. And so please go ahead and put any questions in if you have them. I'm going to, oh, that's very nice. Someone thought my kids were cute. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments are welcome in the dialogue. And if I don't get any there, then I'll assume that I've been just amazingly well communicative here. Let's see if we've had something come up here. Yes, we have. Okay. Can you read that to me, Carnegie? I can't quite see it.
Yeah, let me expand this out a little bit. Okay. Actually, there's 3.
Okay.
Okay. That date doesn't automatically update itself. Need to use MM Updater.
That is correct. Well, actually, that's kind of correct. Because as I mentioned before, it is possible once you've actually populated that data from the GoldMine data, you could redo this same process that I just did. In fact, you could leave that tool in existence and just run Updater every week or 2 weeks or month or however often you wanted to do it to update them all. That would be sort of the cheap and easy solution. So yes, you still have to kind of manually use Updater to keep it up to date. The second possibility would be we could put a SQL trigger in that actually will, as I mentioned before, that essentially watches for your completing a history activity that meets certain criteria, let's say that has a result code of COM or INP in this case, or you name what your criteria are for what you consider to be a real contact with a customer, and we can take that and apply that logic and make a trigger on the SQL side that will go ahead and update that field for you automatically. Those are the best methods that I can think of for doing that. What else do we have?
Someone would like you to describe an on-month field.
Oh, what is the on-month field? On-month is a grouping of the date field. So that's actually a really good question. So if you are looking at in GoldMine and you have a completed item, this date field is actually called in MasterMine and sort of actually underneath the covers in GoldMine. That field is called on date. In other words, that's the date on which this history item happened, or if it's under pending, it's the date on which that thing is scheduled to happen. Now, you probably know that in GoldMine, a number of different dates are stored. The date that the record was created, the date that the record was scheduled to, or that the item was scheduled to happen in the calendar, the date that this scheduled item was last updated. That's 3 distinct dates that GoldMine actually keeps track of for every pending activity as well as for every completed activity. Any date that you have in GoldMine is available to use, in some logical, intelligent way within a MasterMine report. What we do in MasterMine by default is whenever you do a pending or a history report, we assume that what you want is the date that actually shows up here in the tab, but of course you have the ability to specify other dates if you want them. So we assume you're going to take this date, and then what happens when that date gets pulled into the MasterMine report initially is it is automatically grouped by years, months, quarters, and days. And that field becomes named, or the year portion of that date is named year, the month is named month, the day is named date, or the date is named on date. So actually you can see all 4 of them right here together in the list on the right-hand side, of all 5 of them. So that field is actually broken up into 5 different possible fields that can all be used in various combinations so that you can do things like select by year without regard to the month or the specific day, or you can display those things in any combination. So that's what on month means.
Okay, we are getting lots of questions. You ready?
Ah, great. Bring them.
So this method requires a manual update via Updater, correct?
Yes, I think that was answered with that first one.
Right. So
Okay.
let's see. Can notes from completed calls or actions be brought into MasterMine?
You bet. And since you're asking, I added this last contact field here. Notes could just as easily be in here as well. It's one of the fields that you see here. Maybe what's a little tricky about this is it's not labeled notes. And the reason for that is there are notes scattered all over GoldMine. And rather than have just the generic name notes on there, which wouldn't be quite as telling, we actually put a little prefix on there that tells you, well, which notes are we talking about? If we're talking about the notes from the calendar item, you'd CA notes. If we're talking about the notes from history, it would be called CH notes. If it's from the main contact, the main contact notes, those are called C1 notes. So, and there's notes in opportunities, notes in projects, all that kind of stuff. In this case, if we wanted to just add notes after the fact, after the report already exists, it's easy to select it that way. And actually, here's what's going to happen when I click on that. It'll add one. What it does is it actually adds the first 253 characters of the notes into the report, so we could actually see those notes. Well, in this case, I don't have any in the actual data. If I went over to a record and actually added some notes and then refreshed this report, you would see them show up right here. That gets you the first 253 characters of the notes. good to know that if I went back here and did that again and added and wanted to add a second, let's say 253 characters is not enough. I want another 253 characters. I could actually go here like I've just done here, and I'm going to want to add this right after the other notes. So where did I put them? Did I miss it? Oh, you know what? It's just they're going to be automatically added right after the previous ones. Whoops. Well, okay, so that's what should have happened. I might have a little bug there. But basically, what should happen is that the second set of notes would be added right after it, and so on, so that we would wind up with a whole string of those notes fields. So that's the way that's supposed to work. It's not working in this demo database. I'm not quite sure why. And I'll go back and do that.
Of course, when you're making a report from scratch at the beginning, you can include them in there, click them on.
Oh, right. Since the question came up, I was assuming they meant add to an existing report.
Maybe. I just wanted to put it out there just in case.
Yep. Let's give them a little visual here. So at the time you were originally creating a MasterMine report, let's say we were going to do that forecast sale report, the same one that we've got on the other side, you would choose pending, you would choose sale, and then choose whatever fields you want, including the notes. So if I go over here to the right, you'll see a CA notes in here as well, right there. When I choose that, here it asks me actually how many segments of the data do I want to pull. Of those 253 character segments, it defaults to 3, so I'll take those. And then choose whatever other fields I want, hit finish. That will give you the report with notes.
Okay.
Okay. Any
so
others?
Next, there's a bunch.
Okay. Great.
So based on last contact, can you flag a future call or contact?
Flag a future call or contact. Leonard, if you can give me a little more specificity on that question. I'm not sure what we mean by flag one. Do we mean set an alarm? Because we can certainly do that.
Create a pending.
Sorry?
Create a pending, you replied.
Oh, actually create a pending. Yes, you could take that that last contact report. So let's take that as an example. Now is this the sales? This is still my sales one here. Let's go and get that other report that I created, that I started this out with. Love the questions, guys. Keep them coming. So I'm going to go back and pull up that report that I started out with that gave me my last completed calls and so on. And by the way, there are other templates for MasterMine built in that have various different subtleties already in there to deal with last contacts and last contacts of various sorts. Let's see. I wanted. Let's try this. Let's go. Let's get our result codes. Actually, I didn't save this when I did this before, so I'm going to have to do that grouping again. Whoops. Come on. Excuse me. So so those are actual real contacts. And let's suppose what we want to do is schedule a call for a user. Let's do this. All the ones. No. Let's say all here. So we'll schedule a call for all the ones whose last contact was longer ago than a certain time period. So when we say longer ago, well, if we let's say sort these oldest to newest, and then you go down and say, all right, here's my real. You'd set whatever other criteria you wanted to make sure that they're the ones that you want. But let's say we really want to schedule a call for these all the ones that are that old. Okay, so all I've done is highlight those. Now in this case, the process that you would use is not the same. Updater is not what you would use to schedule a call. You would actually use a GoldMine group and then schedule your call using the regular GoldMine process. So in this case, there's going to be 30-some that are going to be in this GoldMine group. This is a tool on the MasterMine drill down toolbar. So in effect, all we're doing is we're going to say, let's call this sched a call. And I'm only making this group as a sort of a temporary thing for myself. Now, another thing I could do, by the way, is just say, let's say I want Lori, the sales rep, to call these ones. When I go over here to the GoldMine side, or sorry, from the Excel side, I could have just made that group and put it under Lori's name and just said, Lori, what I want you to do is activate that group and make those calls. Without actually scheduling any pending activities, that would have kind of taken care of that process. But to just sort of more directly answer your question, you could schedule a call and go in here and say, okay, the user on this is going to be Lori. We're going to have her make the calls, and it's going to be a series. Oh, did I do something wrong here at the beginning? Oh, no, I didn't. So we'll schedule the call, and
At the detail.
Yeah, it's up here that I want to. I'm going to choose who's going to get it. So select a filter or group, and the group is going to be the ones that I just called Sched a call, I think. There we go. We'll say OK. Put in, okay, past due, please call. And you say when you want those calls to happen. You can use, this is GoldMine processes that essentially you can use. You can round robin these. You can have it do, only 10 of them per day, or have them schedule out over time or whatever. So you have actually a good deal of leeway to work with here. And I can hit schedule, and it will go ahead and schedule a call for all. In this case, was there 37 of them? Nope, there's actually more. I forgot what the number was, but so now there's a call scheduled for all of those ones. If I were to actually go to, let's say, this top one here, Comrade Corporation, and look under pending, I should see a scheduled call for. There we go. Actually, I scheduled 2 of them.
One for Lori, one for you.
Yeah. I'm a little unclear. Oh, I see why. Because when I chose the user, Lori, I just added her instead of actually taking myself out. So I wound up double doing it. So you want to be a little bit careful about how you do that and not talk while you're doing it. But basically, I think you get the idea of what the process would be. Okay. What else have we got?
He got that. Someone saying, I'm confused about the field you added. Was it completely new and different field, or a duplicate of the last contact date? If it was completely new, different field, how would there have been data to pull and place into that field?
Okay, so it was a completely new field, and the data that I was pulling to put into it was actually the dates of history items. So what I was doing was using the history as a kind of a body of data to identify records that had certain criteria, namely result codes that indicated that the person had been talked to, and then I basically made it so that from those rows I was pulling the most recent date and putting it in that field. I hope that explains it. If you want to ask further stuff,
she
I'm
says
open.
Yes, she got it.
Okay, great.
Okay, and someone asking from your sales forecast report, where did the amount of sales come from?
The dollar amount of the sales? That would have come from from these kind of sales right here. So when you schedule a pending sale in GoldMine, you are given the ability to put in the amount. It's actually the amount. It's not the price. It's because the amount is the price times the units. So that's where that came from. And by the way, something that people find really useful is like a year-to-date sales field like this could be essentially using your MasterMine report. You can pull all of the sales. Like in this case, they have multiple sales in 2013. Your MasterMine report, together with Updater, can actually aggregate all of those into the one field right here, so that you actually have this accurate and meaningful.
Okay, and next question.
Okay.
Not totally clear on my end. How would we rearrange fields in an existing report generated from MasterMine.
Wow. Okay. So that's that's a whole other thing. Rearrange fields. Are we talking about rearranging fields right here on the screen? Because that is, if and by the way, I won't go into any detail on that. She says yes. Okay. My suggestion is watch the recording from December's end user webinar, and if you don't have it, send us an email and we'll send you a link to it. But if you registered for December's end user webinar, that's exactly what we talked about, was how to work with the pivot table to arrange your reports.
Rhonda, I'll make sure I send that to you after this.
Okay.
Okay. And we're getting there.
Okay.
Can a SQL trigger be set up to measure days elapsed between contact dates, and would the field need to be updated with updater?
That's an interesting question. I would not use a SQL trigger for that purpose, but I think what you're asking is something else. Like, can I do a report that shows the number of days between well, okay. So I'm kind of guessing what you mean by that, and you can feel free to clarify again in the question dialogue there. But what I'm thinking you would mean is if we do a calculation between different contact dates, can we get that number of days into another field in GoldMine? The answer is yes. Well, updater, of course, is updater only uses data that's in the report, even if it's a calculated field, which is usually the way I would do a thing like that. In other words, I wouldn't use a SQL trigger for that. I would just simply use a MasterMine report that has a calculated field in it that gives you, for example, number of days between that date and today, or number of days between that date and the previous date, contact date. The SQL trigger, but okay, I'll just finish with that. So if we did a calculation like that inside the report, that would render us a specific number that would show up on that drill down sheet in Excel, which we would could use up with Updater to pop into a field on the GoldMine side. So that's one answer. The second possibility is maybe what you're talking about is because I was talking about using a SQL trigger.
Well, and that's
what
he agreed with you. What you first talked about was
the thing.
Was the thing.
Then very briefly, I'll just say the SQL trigger could also count, like every time you complete a call, every time you complete a call that met your criteria as an actual contact, the SQL trigger actually could go back and look at your database and find the previous time that you did a call like that and had a contact and return a number to you and have that number go into a field in GoldMine. All of that could be done. I'm not sure that would be useful, but it could be done.
We have a few more questions, but I know it's the end of our webinar scheduled time.
Okay.
So I don't know how much you have left on your agenda.
Let's do this. All we have left that we really needed to do on the agenda was, I was going to talk a little bit more about calculated fields, but in fact, I just now did it pretty much in concept, which is to say we can do fields that are calculated in the report but are not necessarily in GoldMine, like, for example, giving you the number of days between two different dates, and return those in the report even though that actual number is not data stored in GoldMine. So that kind of takes care of that. We do have to do our giveaway. Let's do our giveaway for those of you who've hung with us so far, and I will stick around and answer questions here because I love the fact that we've got apparently people came loaded for bear today, and that's great. So Carnegie, why don't you go ahead and do the giveaway, and while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up. I'm just going to bring up the slide here so that we can so you can remind people. Here's what you get for showing up here. In addition to all this useful and valuable information, is the opportunity to win this free half hour of support. Of course, we welcome you, if you're not the big winner, to go ahead and purchase some additional support for really anything related to MasterMine. Could be report writing, could be data management, data updating, and sort of massaging of your GoldMine data, analyzing Data analysis, I say, is something distinct from report writing. Reports typically are create a report that shows me the same type of information, let's say month after month, where a data analysis is a much more active, kind of interactive thing with your pivot table to ask questions and get quick answers and move on, to learn a bunch of different things. System process design we will also talk about. In particular, we sort of offer that up because oftentimes it's not just a matter of, hey, I need one more field to do this thing, but really more of a kind of a comprehensive thinking through of, what should our people actually do when they complete a call in GoldMine, so that the proper information is captured to be able to have reports that make sense for doing management, that kind of thing. Or it might just be simple training about how to use, different aspects of MasterMine. So how you use this half hour is up to you, just as it is up to you how you use your the support packs that you buy. So with that, Carnegie, go ahead and do your drawing.
Okay. Our winner today is Denise Attree. Congratulations, Denise.
Denise,
I will
congratulations.
Give you a call after the webinar.
Okay, and so that will get scheduled, and you can do that. I'm very quickly just putting up the contact information here for support with us, so that if you need to jot down any of these numbers or you don't know them, please go ahead and do that. We just have the toll-free number up there. If you already have our direct numbers and want to call those, of course, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, so let's go back to, and thank you all for those of you who only had an hour to work with us today. Thanks for your attendance. Appreciate having you on. We will finish these questions and then get done. But keep the questions coming. I'll answer them as long as they're up here, or the provisions hold out.
Okay, so next question. With dirty data, multiple data, i.e. products, the product types purchased, in same field, can they be
I'm looking at it with dirty data, multiple data, product types purchased in some field. Can they be listed in a report? For a list of contacts. Oh, absolutely. That's just a quick variation on that same, at least if I understand what you're asking. Oops, here I got myself back to the report and then I lost it again. That's a different report. Here we go. So I think what you're asking is sort of for something that's kind of like this. Now this is a forecast, but it would look exactly the same if it was completed. A report of completed sales. But so here's a product summary by product categories. Okay, what I'm going to do is just rearrange this into what I think you're talking about, and this would be a good example of take any report and make any other report out of it pretty quickly. So this is our 2013 sales, and if the question is what products did each of these companies buy, here I'm going to do this. Now I'm starting out with the products rolled up, and we actually have. I'll get rid of this because it's probably slowing down everybody's refresh. So these are the actual products that were bought. Now this is a summary for the whole company, but just by dragging the company field in the customer name of the company here to the left, we can pretty easily see, well, here's what AIS distribution bought in 2013. The individual products, in this case rolled up, the gadgets rolled up into one set and the widgets rolled up into another set. You can see the dollar amounts for each one of those. So that's sort of quick and dirty way that I would take an existing report that shows past buying behavior. Now you're saying with dirty data. I'm not quite sure what's meant by that. Did we get any clarification of that, Carnegie, at the end?
Not yet.
But
Leonard, go ahead and fill us in.
That might be something you want to just kind of ask us one-on-one, Leonard, and we can even help you set up a report for that.
Widget A, B, C, all in the same field. One-on-one might be better. There you go.
Okay.
And Log entries, Denise brings up.
Sorry? Log entries.
Yeah, Denise just brought up log entries maybe, and I was thinking it had to do with the dirty data. Maybe considered dirty. Thanks, Denise. I love how you guys are chiming right in there and fixing it for me.
Yeah. We still got a good group on here. Let's go ahead and see what else we've got here.
Okay.
Unless there's something yeah, go ahead.
And that was a continuation of Leonard's. Can they be listed in a report? Yes, we got that.
Okay.
What is the best way to handle multiple accounts in GoldMine? One customer with multiple account numbers that can be searched individually.
Relationship tree, typically. Well, it depends on what it is when you say handle, what you want to do with them. If your question is how do we actually pull their information together into one view, one fairly obvious thing you can do is make MasterMine reports that go by the company name as opposed to by the account number. So in other words, AIS distribution here shows up with multiple different sales that they've done in the past. Those theoretically could be under multiple GoldMine records that have, all of which have in their company field AIS distribution. And the MasterMine report would pull them together as though that was all one record. I mean, looking at it here, you don't know whether those are really spread out across multiple records or they're really whether there's really only one AIS distribution record in the database. So I guess from a MasterMine standpoint, that's kind of the easiest thing. But if the question is, well, we can have this one company under multiple account numbers because it's repeated a number of times or different contacts with the same one, and we want to do something specific with it. I guess my question would be, what would be the specific things you want to do with it? Can they be searched individually? To sort of break them out, actually, you could take the account number, and if there were multiple AIS distributions, you would actually see them by putting the account number in here. You'd actually see them broken out by those different account numbers within AIS distribution, and that would allow you to know who it is that you're dealing with. That might help. Another thing would be, well, if you have the kind of database that's got multiple records from one company, but each one is distinguished by the contact name, then dragging the contact name in here would accomplish that same thing. Hope that answers the question.
It looks like that did, and we have another one for the view last cont. You were using the historical date fields. Would those include activities under the pending tab?
You could, the particular report that I was making only looked at history, but you can certainly, I could have started by building a MasterMine report that did pending and history, or I could have just done it with pending. That's just a checkbox in the MasterMine create dialog. So in other words, when you go to, this is kind of one of the special things about using MasterMine to address your GoldMine data is when you do both pending and history, when you check both of those at the same time, you're actually doing a report that shows both past and future in one unit and kind of harmonizes the two of them, the data that's coming in, so that it actually works, and allows you to do things like see reports that cover let's say this is the middle of the year, and what we wanted to see is we want a cash flow for the whole year that includes the sales from the actual closed sales from the first part of the year, but also the forecast sales for the rest of the year, and all in one view, so that we've got a cash flow. This is an ideal way to do that kind of a thing. For that matter, it's a good way you could take that cash flow report and do the same thing that I did before about passing the information into a field up here in GoldMine, and you would have you could have what like a target field. This is the target number of dollars we think we should be able to get from that customer this year. They've already bought some of it's only forecast, but we get one number, and that way, you know, the ones with the highest number in that field are going to win, you know, an extra Christmas gift and special attention from the sales force and whatever else, and, you know, particular marketing things. You know, all of that can be driven from your pending and history data altogether. You see, I get kind of excited about these ideas for doing stuff like GoldMine data. So anybody wants to do that in their database, let us know. Which, you know, I'm happy to facilitate that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got a thumbs up. He said, I have several users that don't actually complete emails.
Ah, okay.
That's nice. Complete emails, that would be filing them, wouldn't it, Rob?
Yes, so you can, if what you wanted to be able to do is go in and mass complete emails that are sitting out there, the newest version of Updater, which is version 2, which you will be seeing coming out here shortly, does allow you to complete pending emails. In fact, there's a whole email management. I think we've done a webinar in the past about email management with MasterMine, but just in case we haven't, let me. I do want to remind people. You know, we've got a million templates in here, and one of them in here is. Oh gosh, what was I thinking of? Email. Oh, mailbox. So.
Well, he's saying he's literally jumping up and down. Making him happy.
Great. For some reason, I'm not finding my mailbox template in here, but
can you do a search for mailbox?
I think I can. There. Oh, it's inbox. Okay. So this is a way you can actually do a report of the inbox tree for GoldMine. So if you're using GoldMine email, which of course we recommend for everybody, but there are reasons, you know, sometimes that it's, you know, you've got a mix of some using GoldMine email, some using Outlook. In some cases, everybody using Outlook and ignoring the GoldMine email. But if you're using the GoldMine email client, this report is one of my favorite ones, and it's from a GoldMine administration standpoint. It will actually go through all of the inboxes, return to you a report that shows how many emails everybody has out there in their inbox, and some of it will blow your mind, I guarantee it, if they've been using GoldMine for a while. And you know, we're talking about past users who are not even in the company anymore, and their email is sitting there in the pending, and it's clogging up your system. One of the things you can do with the new updater, due out as quickly as we can kind of get it out the door, I'm hoping in the next 4 weeks or so, is complete pending emails, and you could take essentially, you could take somebody's you know, big old email inbox, and you can either delete them right out of the system, or you can selectively you know, put them into two categories using your pivot table, some of which to save and some of which to get rid of, and you can either delete them or you can complete them over into history. So.
I know there's a lot of people ready for that one. He says it's they have emails from the year 2000 sitting in there, so 15 years of emails that need to be filed.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Make sure you're. I don't know who wrote that, but I hope you've got Updater because it's going to help you a lot. Okay. Any other questions?
That was the last one.
All right. Well, for those of you who have stuck with us all this time, again, thank you very much. If you have any other questions, sorry?
We'll work with pending activities as well, right? Take the new Updater.
I think what she's asking is, can you complete pending activities on Mass with
That's
Updater?
I'm thinking.
We actually don't have that as an option right now, although I've been considering it. And the reason is you can certainly use it to, I should say, you can use Updater to delete pending activities, which to my mind makes the most sense, because if the thing didn't actually happen, why would you actually want to have it show up under history? But if it's pending and nothing is, happening with it, and it's way past due, and it's just junk sitting out there in the system, there is a way already built in with Updater to delete those pending activities selectively. That said, that's there, and I actually have been asked for the other one, and someone even came up with a scenario where it does make sense to mass complete some pending activities. I've always felt that it was just a little bit dangerous because I thought people would get confused by it. Maybe that's too paternalistic of me. Okay.
But it is still something we can help you with.
Yes.
There are workarounds to make it happen.
Just let us know what you're thinking of, and we are happy to work with you and figure out what would work best for you in your situation. Okay, well, thanks everybody for your great attention and all these great questions today. I really hope that a month from now, when we do another end user webinar, you will feel as free to ask questions and direct the conversation as you did today. And because I love having some interaction with you, we'll figure out ways to get you the information that you need and have your GoldMine success flower for you in 2015. All right, Carnegie, thanks very much for your help.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks everybody.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.